we're expecting to have roughly $600,000 sort of that can only be used for park amenities, and we recently found out, with some good questions being asked and some going to some things that we didn't expect to find that out at, and found out that we can use them for replacing equipment that's been broke down or dilapidated and that kind of thing, so.
And just to add into that, that is coming forward at Planning Commission on the 21st of November here.
Just change the
some
city
changes
code.
Because the restrictiveness was our zoning code.
Yeah, and we thought it was the state that was restricting us, so.
And this was something that I was very passionate about, because I just see, I mean, anytime you're spending any sort of taxpayer money, it's taxpayer money. I don't care how you package it. I don't care how it's written in the budget. It's taxpayer money. So I was very adamant that we could spend that money to make improvements to parks and not waste the money on the splash pad. So I mean, I don't know, we might be too far along, which I hate to say, because, I mean, I've been
Well, I
voicing
think
my
the
opinion on this
question,
since day
I think
one.
we've got to ask now is more of a question of, because I mean, I don't know what we have right now at the moment with park dedication, but when we first started talking about this at the beginning of the year, we didn't have the kind of dollar amount that we had now. And when the splash pad was even originally discussed, it was gonna be $218,000 out of the general fund, which would have been tax dollars, local tax dollars. You know, now we're using park dedication funds, which is what it's made to be used for. I mean, what are we gonna use that money for that's gonna be a better option? Because we're gonna have to use it for something, you know what I mean? I think that's maybe the question that we have to ask at this point is,
I guess I'd rather save it for a rainy day fund, just like I talked about when we were making these decisions.
well,
If-
because
if
what,
there's
I mean,
something-
what is the balance, like, do you guys know that right off the top of your head? I mean,
I do not know it right off the top of my head, but
Okay.
we are receiving more this week.
but we
so-
have all these apartment complexes coming, or not all of them, but there's 4 buildings coming across 65, and then we've got that one by Mobile. Well, that's really building that fund up a lot, so.
And I had another question. How much area around the splash pad would be left open for expansion?
Quite a bit of area would allow for expansion. That is something that we did figure out in the plan.
That's
so.
my biggest concern. It starts nice and small, but next council will, hey, let's double or triple. Pretty soon you got water slides. And then you got filtration, and that adds a lot of cost. So I'm a no on this project completely, because it only expands from here. It's all fun and games in the beginning, but it gets to be a big project.
How much have we spent on this project so far as of today?
I do not know off the top of my head, but we have paid engineering for writing up these bid documents as well as the ones for the infrastructure, which we did already move forward with awarding that bid for the infrastructure part of the project.
So I just still don't think this bid is even remotely competitive. Is there, if we don't accept this bid and we go out next year, does that mess with the grant, or would we miss out on the grant, or how does our timeline look?
That is actually the next item, is to extend the timeline for this with the state of Minnesota, as we are coming up against dealing with, there's a small amount of manufacturers within the United States that provide the components for the splash park, and the best cost and availability of the components is created in Canada, which means that they don't, it doesn't work. They don't comply with the BABA waiver requirements. It's a lot of words, and I don't know them all off the top of my head. But they, due to that, the legislature has to move forward with them being approved for the BABA waiver. And so that will take at least 6 additional months. So we're working with the state, and we're not the only city who's dealing with this. It's multiple cities that we're aware of within the state of Minnesota, as well as in Wisconsin, dealing with this issue. And so due to that, they are extending our contract through 2025. So December 31st of 2025 for an additional year.
Okay, so
to
with
complete the project.
With this bid, when were they expected to complete it?
They were expected to complete this project by July of next summer.
Okay.
I have a question for you. So we've talked about this bathroom, and I know the splash pad, there's a requirement to have a bathroom where you have the ability to change and shower, right? And is that part of the deal, that we have to have the bathrooms for the splash pad?
Well, That was said previously, before this application was submitted. But it is not a requirement for a splash pad to have that.
Oh.
But it was part of this application, so we will
part
have
of
to move
this
forward with
grant.
it.
It's for the grant.
It was part of the grant, it had to be.
So
Okay.
we'll lose some of the funding if we don't move forward with the grant as written.
I'm okay with the grant going away. The first stage is the start. It's going to be expanded, guaranteed. And that's where the real cost comes from. So,
I guess I would make a motion to not accept these bids and hope for a lower one next year. I will never vote for this, especially with that overpriced of a bid for such a simple, small structure. I mean, if you do the square footage calculation on that, that's more than a residential house for a bathroom by a lot per square foot. I mean, that's not even remotely competitive. So,
Yeah, I mean, when I bought that house on Marion, which we moved out of now, but when I bought that in, what was it, 2019, I think I paid $197 for it. So you're talking the price of a house.
for a little bathroom that we're already doing the plumbing in, I don't know how that bid is even reasonable. So that's my motion, is to at least table this until we can actually get a real bid from somebody in the community that's willing to actually give a real bid.
I'll second that.
Before you guys go with that, though, can I ask another question? So if we had like a portable restroom, like, I mean, we do porta potties out there right now. I mean, would that satisfy the
No.
grant application? It would have to be a building?
Yes.
Also, another thing you realize, those bathrooms are gonna alleviate renting some porta potties.
True.
Which is a very big cost, believe it or not.
Roughly
A lot
It is-
more.
$75 a month roughly is what most of them are.
Per
Per month,
unit.
yeah, right.
It is
In-
also
in
housing
Bluebird, I
our
think we have
electrical.
One
that?
handicap one,
It is
right?
also housing the
And
electrical
that's 110
components
usually.
and some of the plumbing for the splash pad itself. So there
The
is a
utility
room
room.
that is for that as well.
that's some expensive wood.
Is that bid broken down in segments, so how much of the foundation, how much is the framing, how much is the roofing? Is that bid broke down like that? And if so, can we see that? Because maybe we know somebody that would be able to do some of that, something on there has to be able to be cut a lot.
All of the components of this project have to be awarded through some sort of bid process unless they are donated materials or time, because it is comes from federal dollars.
Right, but do we have, when they submit these bids, do they say it's $40,000 for the foundation, $20,000 for framing, $20,000 for electrical? Is that broken down like that? Because I believe that between the five of us, we could find somebody that would give us a more competitive bid for this if they know, say, if we do just the foundation through one company, the framing through another. I mean, it's a little more work, but I gotta believe there's someone that would be competitive on each of these trades.
We did reach out to local builders that we did know, general contractors, because that's what will be required for this project, and we did not have any interest from them. So just
But are the bids broken down and how much each section costs? Or
each bid is broken down differently. We're pulling it up right now to see what it is.
If you give me just 30 seconds, I'm
Yep.
going to email it to you, so then you can pull it up as well.
But I would ask that question one more time, though, is that the park dedication funds, if you're gonna have that much sitting in that account, yeah, we can replace some stuff, but I mean, that's an awful lot of, like, you're never gonna spend it. It'll
Okay,
take you
so-
I mean, I think that's the question.
And
is
I
if
can
we're gonna
answer that
have that
question.
money, is there something else that we could use it for that's a better option than this? And you gotta take into account, you've got $300,000 of state dollars, which is tax dollars.
Yep.
But, I mean, somebody else will get that if we don't take it. So, I mean, I think it's justified to say we should try to get some of that back for our residents. So I don't think that's, you and I disagree on that, I think. But I mean, I don't see a problem with taking that grant money because somebody else will take it. So, and it's not, if I was sitting at the state legislature, I would say that's a stupid incentive structure. We shouldn't be giving money to cities like that, but they are, and we didn't create the incentive structure. We're just reacting to it, right? So,
So I can answer that question.
okay.
During the 07-08 housing crisis, there are a lot of cities that were failing financially, and the federal government actually allowed cities to move around their budget to alleviate big issues to stop the economy crashing hard. So we're seeing an economic downfall. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. And there might be a potential that the government will say, hey, you can use this park dedication funds in a special way, just like the COVID relief funds. You can use this money that you have saved up in a way that's going to keep your city afloat. So if we needed money for something, a slush fund, that's where that's going to come from. The government's not just going to say, hey, you can't spend your money, because we actually own it. It's our money. We just budgeted for it in a technical way. So that has happened in the past. It's not out of line to say that's going to happen again, especially with what is going to come. So I think that's where the
Well,
money.
and I think there's, that's a good point. And do we know, if Mike was here, I know he'd know the answer, but do we know how much I know that maintenance is a part of our budget every year, so on park equipment and that kind of thing. So, I mean, when we say maintenance, a lot of that is things that could potentially just be replaced and not, I don't think we do a whole lot of like just working on park equipment, do we?
So
Or
Mayor, excuse me, the way that we break it down is we have our maintenance within our department line itemed out. So when the slide goes down, if a bubble breaks or something cracks and we have to replace it, it comes out of the park department budget item.
which that we can't use this money for.
Which we can't use that
Right.
for. But our capital improvements, so that is where Mike is budgeting that long-term planning, where if we have, for example, a lot of people reference that one structure within Bluebird Park as Clifford playground equipment, it's that one kind of unit. When that starts aging and degrading beyond just replacing a slide, and we're actually gonna take it down, usually it's for safety reasons, that it's just outlived its lifespan. Take it down, we can use park dedication to put a new structure up in its place. So it's really capital replacement items we can use park dedications for.
Do you know kind of, how much would something like that cost to just replace, like, say, that Bluebird park equipment if we had to?
I would probably guess it's somewhere around the 175,000.
Yeah, so you could chew it up
Adds
pretty
up pretty
quick.
fast.
Well, with that park, wouldn't you want to like double or triple the size as the
Well,
city
right, yeah, you
grows,
could,
especially with the BMX track right there?
Yeah,
Because I think a lot of that usage, it comes from that track on race days
That's
and
heavy
practices.
use.
Absolutely. And I'd almost say that that crowd uses that park more than some of the residents, or most of the residents in that area, because I live in the Park Brook area, and I'm right next to it.
There are a few line items out that are in our capital improvement plan that I would consider maintenance. For example, we do hire a company typically and strip down and repaint, powder coat the pipe, the metal of the playgrounds, because it looks nicer, it lasts longer. We spot treat any rust, we re-weld things where we can. That is actually such a large item. If it's over 10,000, we put it in capital improvement, but I would consider that to be maintenance.
Which
where
we
would
can't
not-
use this
Which we
money
would
for.
not use for that.
But, how about like street dances and that kind of thing? That's a park amenity, I would argue.
Only capital items.
Only
is
capital
what-
items, okay.
And amphitheaters?
Amphitheater probably would work, yep.
Yeah, well, the only issue I see with that amphitheater, one, it doesn't ever seem like it gets used, but two, why is it built flat on the ground?
That was the design that was chosen.
We did just purchase a stage for in the amphitheater with a grant from ECRAC, so the East Central
That
Regional
fits
Arts
inside that?
Concert, yep.
I
That
just-
fits perfectly for it. so.
And that, I believe that project was like $230,000?
275.
Slabs?
It was 238.
238.
238,
Yeah.
and I voted against that one.
Yeah.
And I just,
I would have loved to
it's a
see that money go
stage.
towards this.
It should have been off the ground about 3-4 feet, so
You didn't
more
have to
people
pay
can
for
see
it.
That
it.
wasn't out of park dedication funds. No, that was out of tax dollars too.
To answer Councilmember Merrill's question on the bid documents for the bathrooms, it was not line item out. So sometimes we do it per item. This one was bid out as a lump sum.
Is
So
it
project as a whole.
Is it possible for every single bid that we do from here on out to do it itemized like that? Because otherwise, how can they justify that cost when you, if they're saying it's 50,000 for the concrete and I know somebody that can do it for 20, that's licensed and insured, then, they have to be able to justify what they're bidding, in my opinion, and they're gonna do that on their end anyways, so I don't know why we would, spend $200,000 basically without knowing what each unit, what each thing costs.
What was the dollar amount we had to, there's
$207.
what'd you say?
$207,000, sorry.
Is the amount of,
The budget that is budgeted in
well,
this
I was
project
asking,
funds bathroom.
because you had asked earlier about, you know, trying to find local people or whatever. But with the police department, we didn't have to go out for bids because it was below a certain threshold, right?
175,000.
What'd you say?
175,000.
But this is federally funded dollars, so we have much more stringent.
Okay, so we don't have that option.
Correct.
We have to go.
We have to follow Davis-Bacon wages and all of those items, so we have to.
Well, it's state dollars.
It's federal dollars
Oh, it's that the
funneled
state
through
is
the state.
distributing?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Just to clarify, if any project is thought to be at 175,000 or more, regardless of those requirements, we still have to follow bid law, which is clearly defined within state statute. However, this project has additional constraints on it that we have to meet, like the BABA, Build America, Buy America, and those requirements, they have to be paying prevailing wages, things like that are included because of the grant that we got.
And it's looking like that could be years from now that we'd actually get this done then. I mean, are we gonna build a $175,000 bathroom and then have it sit there and have no splash pad to go with it for 2 years?
Yeah, that looked pretty ridiculous, and let me tell you, a lot of residents would be,
It would have to
Pretty
be completed
boisterous.
by 2025, the end of the year, so it'd be.
Are we gonna be able to
within
get
1 year.
those, because that's the reason we're extending it is because we don't think we're gonna be able to get those parts and that equipment, right? So,
Just through the goal, the thinking now on the state side is that we'll have that approval by June of this coming year.
Steve, can I ask you a question? For the plumbing stuff, do you have any rough ballpark of what that contribution would cost, or for parts and your time? I'm just curious.
25, 30 grand?
Okay.
Just when you're talking about this, you're talking about a small house, the cost of this. Did a house in Forest Lake, just the heating in the house, just the ductwork was $35,000. Now the equipment's another $30,000. That's just cost. There's no profit, there's no labor, that's just the cost. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I'll go out on a limb and tell you this, that 188,000 will be 260 next year, next spring. It's gonna go up that much.
I personally don't think so, but it could.
Oh, I know it
could.
will. Because building materials have not dropped like people think they have. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. Go buy a roll of wire.
That's come down actually quite a bit, since COVID anyways.
Not a lot, but it's came down, but not a lot.
So, Mike, I asked that question because if you, it's 25 to 30,000 for plumbing, so you add that to the 188, I mean, we're over the 207,000 budgeted.
That's one of the reasons I donated it.
Right, no, I know, right. I understand that, and I
To
appreciate
keep
that.
it in that
Right.
realm.
and we appreciate that.
Yeah,
I mean, that
definitely.
gesture, Steve. I mean, that
Well,
is,
I think
Very nice
we've
of
been
you to do
too
that.
far along in this game to stop progressing forward. It's, the ball's already rolled. It's already put money on the coffer. It's already coming out of the pocket. It's already money that's gone.
I would just like to see more competitive bids. It seems like every
It-
time we
You
get a
got a
bid,
problem with it because most general,
they won't deal with
local
this.
general contractors will not do this
Right,
project.
because you have to read through 173 pages of documents to even bid it. Like, I just tried to scroll through all of it. It's like, I bring this up every time we have a big project like this. Why is there so much garbage in these? I mean, it just seems like, I mean, if I owned a business and I wanted to scroll through and read all this and have my lawyers look through this, and I talk about this every time we have a project, why this is costing our residents more money, more and more and more money. Every page that,
Unfortunately, it's out of our control because as Ms. Wood said, you have to follow state statutes and it's the bid format that has to be done.
if we play with the state's money.
No, just any projects as being a public entity. If it's any project, regardless of any funding, it could be all city funding, but if the project, like a street project, that isn't getting any, like MSA funds, if it's over 175,000, we are required to follow bid law.
And there's no workaround with that, like the park dedication funds?
No, it doesn't matter what department, what project, that is a threshold. If it hits that dollar threshold, we have a whole set of rules we have to follow.
So it's really a bigger problem that's costing our taxpayers more money than.
And those
That's-
are, and, sorry.
It's very
to cut you off, but
frustrating.
Councilmember, those are the things that in an audit, it will be listed as a finding, and there could be other repercussions that come from that.
How much paperwork was done for the sledding hill?
Very little paperwork, actually. That was
Perfect.
just a motion by
Let's
council.
keep it simple.
Because we
Let's
did
keep
that
it simple.
in-house.
That was done way under,
$7,000.
Yeah,
under
but
7 grand.
I see
we did the work ourselves.
that is a very attractive amenity in the wintertime.
I think we put another 5 into it for lighting and, yeah.
And part of this lighting is coming off of this building also. It's coming off of this, the amphitheater's tied into it. There's other things, it's not just the splash pad, there's a lot of other things that are coming off of this building. For that lighting, for the sledding hill is all part of this.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I'm against these bigger projects. They're really expensive, but there are projects you can do for very low cost, and they're very attractive, like the sledding hill.
Well, and I would say too, actually, when I was running for, or when I applied for the open seat back in 2019, I think I had discussions with you and said, hey, what do you think I should say? And you had said, well, we should really get another park over across 65 for
Yeah.
those neighborhoods over there. I mean, you have a school park there that, like where the intermediate school is, well, you really can't use that in the daytime if you're, but.
And when we were talking about the park dedication funds and this project in particular, I always said, well, what about VFW Park? And everybody said, well, there's already a park there, so we can't put new equipment there. Well, now it turns out we can. So we took the money from that impoverished area of the community where there's no parks, and we're putting it into something that a lot of people would see as fluff. I mean, to me, it takes away from something that could be good for the maybe less well-off areas and makes an amenity that's really more of a luxury than a basic need, which is a lot of people in this community want basic needs covered. They don't want to pay for fluff.
Mayor, Council, if I could also add, I think that this is really at the key of having discussions for long-term, long-range planning, because it was not that long ago that the council that was sitting here wanted to make Bluebird Park more of a mecca, big park, bring all the amenities there, not have the community neighborhood playgrounds, like why we don't have one in Fairway Greens North, for example. I think it's really important to have those long-range plans discussed, made, and actually written down. So staff is following a plan, staff can educate, new council members of, well, this has been the plan. Yes, they can change, and they grow and alter and modify with the times, but I think that is why Bluebird Park was looked at so heavily to add something such as this, and why staff went forward with that grant application in the first place.
I agree, but I don't think previous administrations were fiscally responsible. So that's why we're talking about it now. Maybe it's time to consider
Well, we didn't
being
know,
a little
and,
more responsible.
I mean, that's literally like maybe a month ago, we found out that we could use these funds
Right, correct.
for more like replacement type stuff, so, I mean, for years, we thought that was state statute that was limiting us. I mean, as long as you can remember, right? I mean, you were
As long
on,
as I've been here.
yeah, and you were.
10 years.
You started in parks, right, so,
14 years,
yeah, so.
it's been known that.
Yeah, so we thought that, I mean, I know we were gonna have a special park meeting where we were gonna talk about kind of what the future of the parks should look like, and because, we have all these funds that are coming in, and I think maybe, I mean, if we're not under, I mean, we're already, one of the things on here is to ask for an extension on that grant for another year. I mean, I don't know that I know what you're saying, I mean, if we wait too long, we're gonna have bids that are gonna be insane, so if we do decide to use it for this, then we could end up hurting ourselves there, but, I mean, I think maybe we ought to take the time and maybe hash this out a little bit more with the park, have a special park board meeting like we talked about. We were gonna have it before, but with Jordan leaving, we wanted to wait till the new park coordinator was in, and that's one of the things we're doing tonight too, is bringing that person on, so.
And personally, I think the construction industry right now they know there's economic downfall coming, so they're trying to make their money while they can. 6 months from now, if nobody's building, they're gonna be wanting to work. They're gonna wanna work just to keep their employees paid, even if they don't necessarily make what they wanna make. So I think right now, a lot of contractors are overbidding just because they know what's coming and they're trying to get prepared. It's kinda like if you're a seasonal worker and you only do stuff in the summer, well, you'd know that you gotta save up money in the summer to offset the winter when you're not doing anything. I think a lot of construction companies are overbidding and trying to be risk averse and save up money now. So I think that's why the bids are extremely high, for
I mean,
a
look,
tiny little
one was
building.
305,000.
That's laughable, huh?
I would have to see a breakdown of the bid to be able to agree with what you're saying, Luke.
Yep.
If they're having to be held at federal and state standards on wages, I'm gonna guess it's the wages that are getting us on this one. Because you have to pay the lowest man on a totem pole X amount of money.
Right.
And I know just a few years back, that was at least $60 to $80 an hour, and that's the lowest guy. So I don't know how many people they.
This is a
only
small
I
project
know,
too.
it's
This is like two people,
person.
yeah.
But I have no idea how that bid was figured. I'd have to see it.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I would propose, is that, I think maybe we ought to wait, if we don't think we're under a crunch for time, I mean, we just got this bid recently, right? So, I mean, do we know how long they'll honor those bids for, or?
Not
Steve,
usually
you're
much
saying like
longer than 30
is
days.
Probably kind of the max right now,
Yep.
from what
And
you're seeing, so
I
that's
already
probably.
made that motion too, and
Yeah,
George
it was
seconded
to
it.
table this, and,
Yep, and hope for a better bid next time.
okay.
Oh, so I think you're rejecting it. That
Yes,
would be a
yep.
motion to reject it.
I did motion to reject
Well,
it, and
would you
Or-
guys,
Or another option
Would you
is
mind
motion
not
to
re-
motion to postpone it to the next meeting. I
that's
think
kind
are
of
the
what
two
I would like to
options.
see, is if you guys wouldn't mind maybe changing your motion, is let's postpone this, so that we have the bid still if we decide that we do wanna do that, and then we can look at what we have for park dedication funds, and, you know, decide, and maybe do that special park meeting where we can take that tour around, talk to the park board, you know, see what they're thinking is maybe the best use of those funds, and then decide if we think there's a better project out there than this, you know, I mean, I think that's,
to me, it doesn't matter what's in the account. To me, what matters is getting realistic bids for what we're getting.
well, I think that's fair too.
I
but-
don't think postponing it's really gonna do anything to say that, hey, you guys need to give us actual bids. I mean, that doesn't really, I mean, what's gonna happen in a month? We're gonna have the same conversation.
Well, potentially, but I mean, potentially we.
Are we gonna rebid
What
it
if,
in
what
that
if we
month?
go, what if we go around all the parks and we come back and say, well, boy, we got $600,000 we gotta spend, I mean,
Oh, I see what
maybe,
you're
maybe
saying.
we do want to do this bid, and maybe we do wanna take that $300,000 in the DNR grant, and I just think it at least leaves the option open, you know, when
Okay.
we are discussing it. Otherwise, we gotta go back out for bids again, and I don't wanna pay to do that. You know what I mean?
I guess my motion was to wait until springtime and go out for bids again. I think, like, just exactly what I said, with people are overinflating bids right now because they know the economy's gonna be slow. I mean, a lot of builders are already slower.
If they're slower, they're gonna bid it cheaper.
That's what I'm saying. So
If they're slower, as you're saying, they already know they're slow, they're gonna bid it cheaper because they wanna get work on the books.
I think next year it'll be cheaper personally. That's,
I don't. I think it's gonna be worse than you think.
okay.
I prefer to just not do the project. That's the cheapest. At this point, that's the cheapest.
But we are, yeah,
So.
we are,
if
we are,
We wanna keep talking about cutting costs, just don't build it. It's not popular. In my neighborhood, it's not popular.
It does impact us if we return money like this, which is very competitive, from getting this funding in the future. So just to always keep that in mind.
If this would have been at $150,000, a reasonable bid, I would have accepted it, but I don't think we can at that price.
Well, so you're saying, so you guys had a motion was to, you guys have that?
Well,
Alrighty.
we can postpone if you want and see, but
I mean, if you
think what
don't
are we
mind,
gonna
I
change?
just would like to have more discussion on it, at
Okay.
least before we, you know, I mean, just so we have some time to really think about it, and, I don't know, that's
Okay,
all I would
that's
say.
fine. I'll change my motion to postpone.
I mean, I'm not against saying, okay, well, let's just skip the whole splash pad thing, but I mean, I don't know that I'm ready to make that decision tonight. you
It'll be
know,
nice to
I'd
know how
like
much
really-
money we have in it already.
Well, it'd be nice, yeah, I mean, once we can get more, how much park dedication money do we have? What projects are out there that we think are the most, you know, prioritize our projects and say, you know, where does a splash pad fit in that prioritization list of projects? And then we can decide how we wanna handle that, you know,
And
I
I-
mean,
I just want to bring up, so this would be taxpayer funded water feature. We already funded the hotel pool. And we have a pool at the high school. And country camping has the river. I think it's country camping has the river. There's 3 places to go for water stuff.
well, that's the thing, is it's not actually city taxpayer dollar funded, it's
It's
federal,
taxpayer
it's federal
funded.
it's federal taxes.
I get that,
So
but it all comes
everybody-
from us.
No, yeah, some of it's from us, and
Yeah.
if we don't take it, somebody else is gonna take it,
That's okay,
so.
because
That's-
this
that's
project
You wanna
is
fund
only
somebody
going.
else's city, right?
Huh?
You wanna go fund somebody else's city? That's
This
what he's
pro-
just saying.
this
So that's-
project
it
is
doesn't
only
matter.
going
I-
to
I think
increase
we
in
need to
project
move forward. to keep going there.
generations down the line, because they're gonna expand it until there's no more property left.
Yeah, and I don't know that I disagree with you on that either. I think you might be right. I just wanna have a little more time to actually take a meeting where
That's
we're
fine.
only, let's just focus a whole park meeting, get us all in the same room, get us with the park board, go tour some parks, prioritize what we wanna get done, and then make a decision. That's all I'm saying. I may agree with you on that, but, so are you guys okay with
Yep.
that? I mean, I don't know, do we need to rescind that motion, or do we need to take a vote on it, or what do you?
The first motion, I
Yeah.
don't think received a second, so it's not a.
Yeah, it did.
Oh,
George seconded it. Well, he seconded, then I interrupted.
okay. Then we should do a motion to rescind the previous motion made
Okay.
and then vote on that.
And I'm not saying that we should do this. I'm just saying, I don't know
More
that we should
information.
not do, I don't know that we should just say, okay, we're done with this today, you know what I mean?
Fair.
And wait till next spring, because we may not want to do that either, so.
I'll make a motion to rescind my previous motion.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilman Merrill and a second from Councilman Heeman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
I'll make a motion to postpone.
Excuse
Discussion
me,
on this
Mayor and
item.
Council, if you're going to make a motion to postpone, please say the date, and the next date after the park board date would be the December 5th city council meeting.
I'll make a motion to postpone until December 5th, city council meeting.
And are we gonna be ready to do that because, I mean, we got a brand-new park coordinator coming in. I mean, is she gonna be ready to bring us on a tour of the parks, and?
I'll
do we wanna-
attend.
You wanna wait another month?
I'll attend. No,
We'll
it's
both
fine.
be there.
Okay, all right. And can we have time to post the agenda for that still? We have time, right? For, what was the 28th, or, yeah, it's okay.
Ms. Hillsheim will be there in
Okay.
attendance with.
All right, yeah. Yeah, let's do that. So.
Second.
So I have a motion to postpone a decision on this item until the December 5th council meeting from Councilman Merrill and a second from Councilman Heeman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. And then the other motion that we had on here was to ask for an extension for the DNR grant, which I think that's just buying us more time if we decide we want to do it or not. I don't have a problem with that.
I'll make a motion to extend.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Councilman Merrill and a second from Councilman Heeman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
So I have a quick question on the item that would have been potentially K5.
Oh, I guess I'm sorry. I needed to call another business item. I thought that was the same business item. Is that okay? It was supposed to be K4, we were supposed to move on to for that
I think staff
extension.
understood.
That's fine, okay. Sorry, Luke, go ahead.
No, you're good. So when K5 was removed, is it okay for me to ask a question on that right now?
If the mayor is okay with it, yes.
What was that?
Is it okay if I ask a question on K5 that was removed? I just like a little more clarification on that.
What did you say though, Josie?
I said it'd be up to the mayor.
Oh,
to
yeah,
allow discussion
sorry.
on
I
it.
got an ear infection and I'm just, I feel like I'm underwater right now, so. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so with that, I know we had talked about potential for, Old Main Street, and there's a business there that might have been able to be rejuvenated with this, and I know it seems like almost everybody that applied for the open council seat had talked about restaurants, and I think it's important that we consider every option. I don't know, can you explain why, again, we're not able to do that? It's just too much staff time? Would it not work for that particular business, or?
Because we are required to do a housing component for this grant dollars, it does require us to have, keep the loans and maintain them for 7 years. And so the work that involves is if anyone were to sell their home, go into foreclosure, or any other, extenuating circumstance of change of ownership during that time, that would be something that the city has to deal with as that happens. And so it is just after Administrator Woods and I both administering programs like this in the past just knowing the undertaking of that and our staff capacity at this time, it just does not seem feasible for us to move forward.
Okay, you said things that you'd have to deal with. Can you elaborate on that? What would that entail? Would that just be more paperwork, or does that mean that we would be on the hook financially, or I guess
Potentially both. Or
okay.
So one of the programs that when Ms. Hillsheim and I were talking about this, seemed very similar to a neighborhood stabilization program that the city had done with the estate program years ago, and was great for a lot of people, forgivable loan. But one of the things that happened, which is something that I inherited when I became the city administrator, was additional work to deal with the properties that some were easy, some were just, we closed them out, and it was a certified letter that we sent out that everything's good, you met all the requirements of this program. But other ones that went into foreclosure became an issue and a liability on the city, and that we don't have to deal with yet now. The program's closing, but had that program not closed and on behalf of the state, we would have been potentially on the hook for that. So I just erred on the side of caution. We discussed the benefits and the disadvantages, like worst case scenario. I hate to think like that, but there could be worst case. We don't know what's going on. We don't have any plans to add more staff. If this became a huge workload, would we be able to handle that? Would we be able to get the benefit out of it for the restaurants? There's other funding opportunities that will help us commercially without this added residential portion of it. The community center was not able to be included in this. That was a great selling point initially, but because it's a polling place, we can't.
Because of what?
Because it's a polling place, it's a precinct for voting. It excludes it. So there was a lot of hopeful things that we thought maybe this program could be beneficial, but it just, the benefit wasn't outweighed by.
So would it be possible to reach out to that program and tell them maybe they need to look at these things, because, I mean, it really takes the value out of the potential opportunity for people?
I think they're very aware of the hurdles that this causes for many communities. One of the, being a part of GPS 4593, this was a topic that came up in our last meeting, and I just talked about how we were considering applying here, and most of the feedback I received from the neighboring communities was that the work does not outweigh the benefit, so.
And the risk of being on the hook
Yes.
financially.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's just kind of crazy that these programs, I mean, if we didn't have Josie or any of our good staff, we would, I mean, look at all the other cities that are probably getting on the hook for something like this. It's kind of sad that they know that there's problems with it, but they're still making it seem all great and amazing, just like every other government thing.
We cannot use park and rec funds for the community center?
I think if you were going to potentially put a commercial kitchen in, maybe something new, I think we could look into that, 'cause it's more a capital improvement that wasn't there before. But most of the things, replacing carpet, things that we've done for updating, replaced lights to go to LED, repainting, adding different features like that, I think are all considered maintenance. But if we were ever to add on, I don't foresee that happening. I
About
think
round
maybe-
folding tables. Just yesterday I was in there voting, and Elaine from the Lions said, we need round folding tables in here.
Oh, round
And for
folding.
the-
I
for
will
like
say some
wedding-
of those
I can see
folding
that for
tables
like
are
weddings
getting
and stuff, and
pretty rickety. I can say when that whole, I used to call it, and I won't say it because paper's here. But no, it used to be like an old bingo hall type facility with the hard laminate floor that got scuffed super easy. And we had a gracious donation, Ruby Johnson, I believe, who donated a great sum of money, and we were able to do great things. But it was a tight budget. It really, even back then, in 2014, it took a lot of money to do small changes. So.
I remember back in the day as a kid folding up them tables. So it is better now than
it's
it
still the
was.
same tables, you think?
I don't know, I think some of them are better, but
Well, she was just thinking more for like banquets and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But, all right, any other questions on that?
no, I just wanted more clarification and just to make sure that the business that's downtown that we had talked about had been considered in not going forward with that. But I would like to look into other options to help that business. There's just too many people in this community that want something like that, so.
We definitely are looking into all
Okay.
possible opportunities always and working with them closely on the possibility of moving forward, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to what would now be K5, discussing the next steps for the intersection project.
All right, so Mayor and Council, at the October 24th joint meeting, it was decided upon which options we were going to pursue. Staff was authorized to work with the county, or I was authorized to work with the county, and we were jointly having discussions about purchasing land that would create a fourth leg. That land hasn't gone through at this time, so we are moving forward with the local road improvement grant, the LRIP grant, to get hopefully a large sum of money to pay for this project, grant working with Bolton Minker Engineering Firm. One of the things I wanted to bring up for council, if it's up for discussion, is to enter into a first right of refusal with the property owner to at least be notified if they were receiving offers, that they would say, usually how they go is, I have an offer for this amount, do you want to match that? And so we would have the opportunity to potentially look at a fourth leg down the road. The option that was chosen, option number 5, does permit for something for an extension of that leg down the road if that was something that worked out. So I'm just requesting if you would like me to do that. It would take a small sum of money to work with our city attorney to draft it, because it will be a legal document. We are well under budget within our attorney in our admin department, well under what's budgeted for the year. So that was it.
I'll make that motion to go on first right of refusal.
I would second that.
I have a motion from Councilman Lundin and a second from Councilman Merrill on the first right of refusal, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
I think that lot's gonna sit empty for a long time, so.
Oh, I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, I think
Maybe a Scooter's Coffee will go there.
we got the right, we got the right.
They're popping
right
up
Probably
everywhere.
about all that would fit there, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Not saying we need any more coffee places, but
On the consent agenda, I just wanted to thank, and Luca probably was trying to beat me to this, but you can do the next one. Isani Rental is donating the use of their popcorn machine for Illuminate Isani, so I wanted to thank them for that.
I wanna thank APR too for their, donation as well. Absolute portable restrooms.
Yeah, it's awesome to see that kind of community involvement in what's going on there, and especially the way that we've changed how we're funding it now, and
No
so-
taxpayer dollars
Yeah.
added to it.
Yeah.
It's great.
and
So,
it's
Ms. Wood,
still gone
I'd
very
like to
well.
ask you, how your thoughts were on the, hire this Julie Cedarberg.
We are super excited. We had, I believe, over 40 applicants for that position, the Park and Rec coordinator position, so a great turnout for people being interested. We had some people far away, we had people local. It was just phenomenal. We interviewed, I think, 10 individuals, and they were hour-long interviews, so we tried to make them, it's a tough position to hire for, because it does so many different aspects of community involvement, to working with construction projects, to doing event planning. There's just such a wide gamut of things that they do. So we wanted to try to find that perfect person that can do some of everything and have really a huge ambition to learn. And I think that our candidate, who we offered the position to, Julia, fits that mold really well. We're excited to bring her on board. She's actually going to be able to cross-train with Jordan a little bit, which will really help with Illuminate Isani. It's a huge event for a small city, small staff to take on. So that's great that there'll be crossover for her to be trained in. And she's been a participant and helped with many events in another small community. So I think she'll be a great asset to us.
And I could see Stephanie just glow when you said crossover with Jordan.
can I ask a question about the Illuminate Isani? How many hours does it take to set up,
For Public Works or everything from start to finish?
start to finish?
Wasn't it roughly like $50,000 of time and resources that were put into it for setup and running the event? And that's about what we made on ticket sales last year. I think it was roughly around that number, if I remember
It
correctly.
is faster this year, so I can say that. You learn a lot in your first year. It's taking Public Works staff, they said roughly of time, like 1 week to set up. So not weeks. It takes longer because they have a lot of other duties, as you're aware, to do. So they fit it in between, but that's about what they need now. So definitely getting faster and better, and everybody's on the same page, and we couldn't ask for better staff to be really taking the charge and being so positive and supportive of this event. So we're very lucky, and also lucky to have Jordan staying on. We're very excited about that through this event, which he didn't have to do, so we're appreciative.
So Jeff,
Go ahead.
we had talked about and looked at basically what it costs and what we bring in for revenue. And we looked at that pretty in length earlier this year because I was against Illuminate Isani, and I think a lot of people in the community were. And we had decided that we didn't want to put any more capital improvement money and taxpayer dollars into it, that we want to try and keep it basically cost neutral. So that what we expend, we would get back in ticket sales. So that way there's no tax burden necessarily on taxpayers. And I think it is, I mean, it does have value, but not that the value that we need to add $100,000 of taxpayer money every year. And I think that's what our consensus came to. And we've
Yeah, I
had
mean, I
some
think
good
the
donations.
plan was to
Yep, great
Yeah.
donations.
The plan was for us to spend another $100,000 this year
Yeah.
on it,
And we
and it was like,
nixed
No, I'm
no.
sorry, I'm gonna have to say no
Yeah,
on that
we
one.
said,
again.
okay,
We
we'll
did.
spend the money that it made, or that it didn't make money, but it brought money in last year. Well, that money that it brought in, it can spend, fine. So we had the initial investment, but we're not putting more taxpayer dollars into it. And we've had, like Steve said, a lot of awesome companies donating and, buying, brand new,
Does any of them wanna take this over?
displays and-
Somebody
Alright.
took over the farmer's market. Why can't we get,
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Okay.
I'll second.
I have a motion to accept the consent agenda from Councilman Lundin and a second from Councilman Heeman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Make a motion to
I
adjourn.
do have another communication. So I noticed that the compost site closed, what was it, November 5th, I believe it was. And this year in particular, I'm not sure if this is average for every year, but I know I was cleaning up leaves, and November 6th, I wanted to bring them in, and I couldn't. And there's a lot of people in my neighborhood that are still collecting leaves, and now we don't have anywhere to necessarily bring them. Would it be possible to have it open a week later? Because I think a lot of the stuff, I mean, it falls at the end of October, the big fall usually. So, a lot of people can't get to it within 3 or 4 days.
I
Couple things I
just
think-
had somebody, it was actually Elaine again, mention that to me yesterday. And we had kind of an interesting year because it didn't really, the leaves didn't change at all until later
Till
in
boom.
October than normal, I think, so. But yeah, maybe that would be something to go ahead, Josie, sorry.
So I think what started as was the kind of dates that worked. Also, when we hire seasonal employees, it's hard to find them that are going to work in the spring and in the fall. Usually you get that summer because they have maybe college or they have some other thing going on. So it's harder to find staffing if it gets too far out. And if we were to put public works in there and we're also in plowing season, it gets really challenging to add more dates earlier, or later, I should say. Just for what we're doing. I think as we grow and we do add more people, this year was really difficult finding additional seasonals when we were looking. We didn't have the great turnout like we did for our park and rec position. But I think with more, manpower, people power, I think that we can have some opportunities to make it be open later, as long as it's not dependent on the people who are also plowing.
Okay, so right now, currently, there's an older fellow that works there, and he's really nice, and I think he likes that job, so I'm pretty sure he would still take it on for an extra week if we offered it to him. So, even if I think we're open, 4 days a week now? If we cut it down to 3 days a week, but extend it?
Yeah, we aren't open always on Sundays and Saturdays. That is kind of
That's
just
the
the
end of
beginning of the
season.
season, later in the season. That actually changed, I think, Mayor, when you came on as a council member, we added in some additional
My mother-in-law,
weekend
I had
days.
to keep my mother-in-law happy. That was her request.
Well, it bothered me.
That's why we did it. No, I was kidding.
Yeah, it affected me specifically. I had a whole truckload of leaves, and I was like, oh, what am I gonna do now? And
This time you mean, yeah.
Yeah, so, and I'm not the only one. There was one of my neighbors, too, was like, we can't get rid of these now?
absolutely.
That's up to the mayor as presiding officer.
Yeah, go ahead.
Directly related to this, the city of Cambridge actually, in the refuse collection as part of their contracts, forces the refuse
So I can comment on Mr. Eggie's statement and kind of inquiry, is the city of Iceni doesn't have single-source refuse haulers. It's kind of a controversial issue, dare I say. Some people love it, some people really don't love it. But we give the choice of residents can choose who they do, so we don't have any contract with any of our haulers to have any kind of requirements. We do have a contract for city facilities, we go out for bid for, but we don't have anything for any requirement for residents for haulers. But great point. I mean, that is a great service. We do not.
So could we maybe discuss at for a different meeting about potentially having it open a week later, or maybe just something to consider for next year?
I think it's a great thing that probably we could do for next year. I'm just hesitant to say, yes, we could do it this year with.
Oh, yeah, not for this year, no, I mean
Okay,
for, yeah.
I definitely
No,
think that
no,
we
no,
could look
no.
at it for next year.
Okay.
Yes.
Can bring leaves though up to,
The one on 95.
in 95, on
Yep.
95, yep. So, and I think leaves are free, a truckload of brush is $5, so. Okay,
And they
anything?
do a lot of stuff there with hazardous waste too, so if you guys have antifreeze sitting around, keep it away from your dogs, go recycle it. It kills a lot of dogs and cats, seriously.
There's your PSA for the
Yeah,
day.
PSA.
Motion to adjourn. I brought that up once.
I have a motion to adjourn from Councilman Lundin. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Merrill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. We are adjourned.